Greetings and welcome to the UC San Diego AI Alumni Council webinar series. Today's focus is real examples of ROI from using AI. Every quarter, we're doing a foundational webinar series that has 3 different topics. The first month of the quarter will be AI Meets Life. That's what we did in January, and nice to see some of you return from the January webinar. We had Qualcomm and we had a case study on carbon robotics. Today, we are focusing on the industry ROI. As I mentioned, we've got 10 case studies to go through with you. And then March, we'll be doing student spotlights. So this is 3 different perspectives every quarter, and we'll have new, fresh content every quarter with this focus. So today, we'll start with a couple updates, and we have 3 speakers. Rob Lewis is our guest speaker today. We'll be introducing him shortly. Brian Baumgartner, who's our co-chair, and myself, we're all active in the AI industry, and we'll be presenting 10 examples of the way AI is having an impact at companies. What we did is curated a range of small, medium, and large business across different functions like sales, marketing, operations, engineering, and then across different industries. So you could get a real sense for how AI is being used right now and what kinds of results companies are getting from it. And then we'll do a quick Q&A and what's next. So before we roll in, we want to hear from you. We want to build this new council to serve what you need to hear about AI. So a couple ways for you to get involved that are new. We have a survey, and we really would love you to share your thoughts on what you want to see from this council. It's a quick survey, 6 questions. Please, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can join our LinkedIn group, Instagram, but also in here and a barcode, and you'll be getting these slides, so you'll get the links too. You can register for the upcoming webinars. All of this in one page. And we do have some new webinars that we've posted. So for those of you who registered for the January, February, March Q1 series, the April, May, June is now open, and you can register for that. And then the last new thing, we do have now a speaker submission form live. So if you have an idea, please reach out to us, and we would love to hear what you're thinking. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brian.
Thanks, Sandra. Hi, everyone. So I'm talking about a new series that we're adding. The webinar you're watching right now is part of what we call our foundational series. So if you attended last webinar in January or the kickoff one last year, these are all part of this foundational series. That's going to continue. As Sandra mentioned, if you go and sign up for future webinars, you're going to see that series and all of the different opportunities that are coming up every month for the next, I think it goes out till June now on the registration page. So you can see quite a bit of registration options there. But for AI perspectives, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to bring in industry perspectives from people throughout the AI industry. I'll be kicking it off in March with a view on regulatory, public, and customer sort of opinions on AI. And since I'm a physical and sort of applied AI background, mostly in robotics, I'll be talking about it from that lens more than anything. But we also have a speaker set up for April to talk about legal and ethical considerations for AI. And in general, we want to drive this from inputs from the community, i.e. you. So let us know if there's anything that you would like to see us do. In particular, we have a good host of people who have volunteered to speak. And so I think we've got a good lineup coming with that. Like I said, those first 2 kind of already in place, but there'll be more to come on that in the coming months. And I think the next slide will talk a lot about what I just said, but in a little more detail. So the QR code again there, grab that QR code, get signed up so you make sure you don't miss the live webinar, or at least get the recording after the webinar. But just to know what's coming up next, right? The next foundational series webinar, which is on student spotlights, is March 18th. I will, as I mentioned, kicked off the AI Perspectives webinar series with something called Winning the Hearts and Minds of Customers, Regulators, and the Public on March 24th. And then in April, we have another foundational series going back to AI Meets Real Life. That's the same theme as January, but obviously new content and new topics. So it won't be a repeat, just the same theme. And then in late April, we have another AI Perspectives webinar that I mentioned, legal and ethical challenges associated with developing and deploying AI. And then we will have another workshop that's being scheduled for AI optimized career strategies. This is likely a 2-day, 1 hour a day workshop for this particular topic. No date currently, but watch this space. I'm sure in the next webinar in March, or from our communications to the LinkedIn group or other places, you'll be able to get that information. So keep an eye out for that one. And I think I'm covering this slide as well. So this is just a quick overview of the leadership team. We show this every webinar. We won't go through everyone's title and who they are and what they do this time around. But I think the key here is look at the faces, look at the names. If you want to talk to any of us about topics, if you want to be a speaker, if you want to connect with us on LinkedIn, just reach out, find us on LinkedIn, find us in the LinkedIn group, reach out, send us a message, mention the AI Alumni Council, and we'll be sure to have a chat with you and coordinate and collaborate.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And let's jump right in. I want to introduce our guest speaker today, Rob Lewis. Rob is a Chief Product Officer at Local Value. He has product DNA from Shell, Qualcomm, Verifone. He has varied experience in building product teams and bringing complex platforms to market, from ideation to go to market. He is also has some patents in blockchain, and he's fellow alumni. We are very excited to welcome him as a guest speaker today. And Rob, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. So what I'm going to be going through today are 3 case studies of actual AI in use, and then talk a bit about how it is in use and provide a context for why it was so important that AI be the solution to this problem. The first one is a very straightforward, kind of almost run-of-the-mill of what's happening in the world of marketing, turning blog posts into creating blog posts for customers that are then reutilized out in the world. So one of the things that Local Value, which is it's a marketing services company, but I do a lot of things inside of it, like consulting, and I formulate new entities inside of it. So I've got a half a dozen or so entities that are formed inside of Local Value. But one of the things that's important about the service that's offered is that the blog posts are for customers, a way for their sites to remain relevant. And I had a problem with our social media marketing manager, who was just not doing things on time, not doing things in the right place. Started getting, they're just problems, right? Like, and finally, after quite a while, I finally said, all right, there's got to be a way to do this using AI. So back up one.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So the rest of the problem, so he was not being responsive, and then bottlenecked execution was the rest of the whole social media marketing strategy relied on that blog post being in place. Newsletters were sent off of it. Social media marketing was done off of it. So your Facebook posts, your Instagram, your Pinterest, all that stuff was all keystoned off of that one thing, which prevented the rest of the social media marketing plan to execute. So the solution, I turned around and said, let me create a prompt that will create the editorial calendar, create the SEO keywords and prompts that need to be posted inside of the blog post, and then actually craft the blog post itself, citing specifically 3 references in the world for where the content was coming from. And in 3 prompt iterations, I got the right prompt that I could then replicate for each client. And what ultimately happened out of that is a full annual editorial calendar, all the SEO components necessary for each post, and the content for that post allowed for immediate publishing control. So all that had to be done was a graphical element brought in and notated for that post and published inside of it. So right off the bat, we saved about $6,000. And instead of having this multi-week painful process that we were going through getting the blog posts done, the whole thing for all customers can now be done in about 2 to 4 hours. You have to still verify that AI did the right thing and make sure that things are where I'm not hands off 100% yet. It doesn't make any sense to do that. And right now we have no dependency on an outside social media marketing manager, and we can be on or ahead of schedule all the time. What that allows our customers to do is have access to those posts before they go live in the world and review them so that it meets their expectations for what those posts are supposed to be. They're informative posts, so there really isn't a whole lot of concern around that. So the second situation. Oh yeah, I could go back up one. I think that you had a.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
that's
tools.
right. That's right. Oh, the tool for this one, just ChatGPT was used. So it was very easy to. I say that and I have to take that back. Abacus.ai was used for this, and Abacus.ai used ChatGPT. So Abacus gives you the ability to do deep dive and fire off multiple projects, and then the DeepSync manages larger projects. So it was able to do all 50 some odd posts per client. So we basically have a full year's worth of content prepared and ready to go. Once a month, we do our postings.
Great. And I'll add that so that people who get the slides see the tools that were used.
Cool. So the next one is we had a new client coming on board, and they have no visibility. Their SEO is just they're invisible. And they had this library of YouTube videos they wanted to repurpose for their website in one way or another, which is great. One of the benefits for marketing is having YouTube, Google, the 800-pound gorilla in SEO. If you're using YouTube and you're using Google Business on your website, they give you extra bonus SEO juice for your site. So one of the things our SEO team said was, let's make sure that we get those videos published out in the world and people are actually clicking on them and then going to the website, because that'll help things out a lot. So they had about 12 YouTube videos that had high quality content and were just largely ignored is an understatement. They'd been around, some of them had been around for like some of the videos had been around for like 8 years and had, half a dozen or a dozen views on them. So the YouTube assets were just sitting there, no SEO leverage whatsoever, and no repurposing strategy. So they didn't have any other access to that YouTube channel and all those video assets to be leveraged. Nothing else was pointing to it. Nothing else was pulling from it. So what we did was, go ahead. We employed AI. So they also didn't have the money to do the manual process of figure out what all the words are inside of the YouTube video, build a whole blog post around it, post your YouTube video inside of that, turn that into a blog post and fire that blog post off to social media. So we used AI to transcribe the videos, convert those into blog posts, optimize that data for the blog post itself, the metadata, the SEO, and all that sort of stuff. And then we set up a regular cadence to roll those blog posts out over the course of 12 weeks, one post per week. That is now getting social media visibility, YouTube visibility, and website visibility. So from an SEO perspective, that's kind of the trifecta. So huge reduction in production time. The amount of time that we would have had to spend going through those videos, then writing the blog post and getting things done would have been, for the 12 of them, probably a good week or so, full week's worth of activity. And we saw an immediate increase in traffic in the first 5 weeks, and it's counting, right? So it was basically close to zero and easy to get something on the scale, but still an incredible increase in traffic. Went from 0 to 12 posts, all relevant to the website. Instantly, pages that were never ranked before were started getting ranked. So Google blessed this process and said, absolutely, you're promoting our videos, you're promoting YouTube, you're promoting your website, and you're promoting yourself inside of our SEO engine. And helped them to open up new lines of business. So they were able to, one of the things we're now working on with this particular client are new areas that they can go into that are still consistent with their product, with their service. For that, we used video to blog.ai, which did most of the heavy lifting, and then ChatGPT to manage the rest of the what do we do with SEO. And again, the client couldn't afford all of that. So having this go through one quick process made it super cost effective to get it completed and out the door, and not have them pay a ton of money to get these YouTube videos in action and put them all in action, get the full benefit out of the overall service. So next. So the last one, and this one is, so one of the things I said about what I'm at work on now is within local value, I run probably half a dozen other entrepreneurial ventures. And when they get large enough, I'll be spinning them out as individual companies. One of those companies, one of those enterprises that's not yet launched, the company hired me as a consultant to come in and give them a business plan and a product strategy. Now, I'd worked with this team before back in the mid 2000s, so 2008 through 2010 or 12. So I'd already worked with this group before. They knew exactly who I was. And they asked me to come in, and they'd been working on this project for about 2 years. And nobody could see a way for them to make money. They were just spending money building ideas, building ideas, building ideas. So very well intended. They all had the right intention, which was, we're going to build this product and we're going to listen to every idea that comes in and we're going to keep adding it into the product. But nobody on any side, engineering, marketing, the chief financial officer, when she heard I was coming in, just pulled me aside and said, you've got to find a business model inside of this. Part of the business model had the need for a product that was different than what the product that they had developed over the previous 2 years. So one of the things that I'd had a difficult time doing was expressing what that new product would look like. I built the user experience design flows and built the how things were going to, when you're in this state, this is what's going to be shown. You're in this state, this is what's going to be shown. And did the, as good as a guy who's not a designer, not a user experience creator, I haven't developed software. I mean, I used to be a software developer while I was in school, but since business school, I haven't done any software development. The best that I can do for expressing that, and it wasn't sinking in. So all they had done up to that point was collect technical debt and created this, that when you're adding lots and lots of features, you end up with what's referred to as strategic drift. So they had an idea and they just kept meandering and making this thing too big, just a jumble of features. I think I showed Sandra a picture of a Simpsons episode that Homer Simpson was given the opportunity to build a car, and he built a car with absolutely everything, and it failed miserably. And that's the nature of what was happening here. So they had keep going, back up. So they had 2 years of engineering. The product hadn't solved the core problem. They didn't know what their core problem was that they were solving, which was part of the problem. Feature jumble, and then the first engineering team was let go entirely, just cold turkey let go, and a new team was brought on board to try and do the same thing. Well, they were taking input from the same source. So you give the same instructions to the next team, they're going to develop something very similar. So now what I did was I started to develop, the slang term for it is vibe coding, started to develop vibe coding, a version of the platform that I wanted to see. So I took my presentation about the user experience and built a product requirements document. One of the interesting things about what's happening in AI today is, in software development, we used to do a thing called waterfall, where you would spend a year or two developing requirements, and then you'd spend a year or two developing the product, and then the product may or may not solve a market problem by the time 4 or 5 years has passed when you get your first product out the door. That's waterfall. We switched over to a thing called agile that allowed you to do continuous builds all the way through, and you kind of follow the market. Well, in the world of AI, you can actually build a requirements document and build the whole application all at once. So I have a PRD. I'm very adept at writing PRDs. So I had written a PRD for this product, and I gave it to AI, not just one, but I gave it to 3 separate AI platforms. Famous.ai. I wasn't getting exactly what I wanted from that. So I then turned around to Abacus AI and got a really good version. This morning I was on a 7 a.m. call, and I was displaying it for the head of marketing of this company. And all of a sudden, a bunch of things happened on the map that I had been trying to get the first 2 teams to actually accomplish. But the AI version did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I went, did you see that? That's what it's supposed to do. A bunch of things came alive at 7 o'clock in the morning, because I'll tell you what happened. I live in Ocean Beach, and some of the bars in Ocean Beach open at 7 a.m. with a bar special. A bunch of degenerate alcoholics in Ocean Beach. But that's what happened. And there were some $3.50 specials that popped onto the screen. And I was like, that's what it's supposed to do. Show you what deals. So that came alive. And then now I'm using Replit to give a third version of what the application is supposed to look like. So I'm vibe coding the whole application for the company. So I don't have to do a lot of hand waving. And imagine if my PowerPoint presentation could actually, without me spending a lot of time building animations into it. So it was a rapid user experience and prototyping to get to the full proof of concept instead of hand waving proof of concept. So the product requirements document is now being used as the functional specification. The functional requirements are coming out of the product requirements document. It's giving user experience clarity, because each of the 3 platforms has a different way of expressing. I'm going to get them to be the same thing sometime soon, but they have 3 different ways of expressing my requirements, because they have different interpretive AI engines on the back end. So I'm able to cherry pick between the 3 to show what I mean to the engineering team. It's helping me to build the user experience clarity, and I'm building the full prototype using AI tools. One of the things that's interesting about the process is every 10 minutes, I was working on 3 different AI platforms at the same time. I looked at the results of the last build of one, typed in some commands to guide it into its next direction. It spun up, and it takes 10 minutes for that thing to go through its cycle. So I flipped over to the next one, saw its results, said, okay, you've missed this, you dropped that, you forgot about this, and send it off and go to a third one. And I only need a minute or 2 on each one. So I actually have a couple of minutes at the end of free time while watching 3 separate entire development teams develop these applications. And I'm adding a 4th platform later today. So the quality more accessible because of the fast testing and refinement, and then idea to code in 15 minutes. It's now getting super, super easy. ChatGPT, Nano Banana. Yeah, so I use Nano Banana for the imagery that was put onto the screen itself. All right. I think I did that within the time frame you asked for.
No, that's great. Rob, thank you so much. This is really your day-to-day. You're in this living, eating, breathing, and delivering using AI tools. And I love that you split this between Replit, Abacus, Famous AI, and really kind of pitted the tools against each other for prototyping. Really nice to see that in action. So I have a couple that I've curated for everybody. A little background on me: Sandra Peterson, CEO of Sandstone Partners. I'm the founding chair of the Alumni Council. And again, thank you all for joining us. I've been in AI since 2014, quite a while in Silicon Valley. I live in San Diego now, helping small companies adopt AI, do training, change management, and strategy. Once you start applying what you're seeing today, what Rob is doing every day at the enterprise scaled level, this is an example of how this plays out. US Foods is a large American food company. They serve over 300,000 restaurants nationwide. And their sales team, so this is a sales enablement example. Their sales team doesn't just sell food, right? They help them curate menus. They actually take care of equipment for the restaurant. So they're a partner with their customers. And what they were finding is that the sales reps were taking 3 to 4 hours per customer proposal because they had to pull, it wasn't just a template and rote. They pull from the customer's actual menus. They have conversations, notes, they have spreadsheets, they have disparate data in different forms to pull together. And then they were reconciling that to put together a proposal strategy for customers. So what was happening, of course, is, and I've managed sales teams before, and the last thing you want them to do is be spending time doing administrative work, and they hate it too. So they were losing selling time to this bogged down process of doing these proposals. So US Foods said, hey, we're going to pilot something and see if we can throw AI at this and help us out. So what they did is the POC, a prototype, that basically started with using AI to just extract all that base content that the salespeople were juggling, is fed it in and see what it would do with it. Scanned documents, website data, spreadsheets, and had that structured into a format. And they built a proof of concept just to try out. They rolled that out to a few of the salespeople. And again, salespeople don't like really adopting new technology. It's always hard to, hey, I got a new tool for the team. And they're like, no, we just want to get out and sell. We don't want to learn yet another tool. So they're very reticent. In this case, US Foods had the opposite of the typical response from their salespeople. Their early test, the salespeople loved it so much that it got early adoption, and the customers liked it too because it had a clarity from all their data and presented it quickly and professionally. So they actually ended up building out their prototype and launched their automated order guide system. So the kinds of benefits that they saw, and this scaling in a big enterprise, this is meaningful. 20 minutes per proposal instead of 2 to 4 hours. They kind of calculated that across the team in 6 months, they're saving 32,000 hours of administrative time for their salespeople. That's 32,000 hours more of selling time. They also, and this was what, I didn't see the number on this, I looked for it, but US Foods cited that they got a 10x ROI on their investment. They were willing to invest way more than what it cost to build this prototype and launch the product. And then, of course, the reps got to spend more time selling. So the tools used here, enterprise houses tend to be in Azure or Amazon. So they are an Amazon Web Services house. And they use some of the Amazon tools to build their prototype and intake the data. Anthropic Claude, an LLM just like ChatGPT. Many of you probably use it. Some don't. I use it. I use ChatGPT and Claude are my main two of the four that I use on a regular basis. Amazon TechStrat works within the Amazon web environment. Bedrock helps them build the prototype. And then, of course, the infrastructure to keep that all in one consistent place. So there is a large enterprise. That's what happens when this scales. Here's a medium company. This is a whole different world. We're shifting to customer support now in the healthcare industry. So a whole different area and how they're using AI to be more efficient. This company, Orion Health, it's based in New Zealand, they're a healthcare platform provider. So their customers are clinicians, they serve state governments, they're in 70 countries, they have 150 million patients in their, what they call their citizen base. And they do things like telehealth, manage the insurance systems. Their support staff gets calls on cases to resolve, approve, and they had to go to 6 different knowledge repositories to start investigating and moving things along. This is one of the reasons it takes so long for insurance companies to process things, right? They have cumbersome, big systems. They estimated they were losing about an hour a day per employee. It seems pretty light to me, but I think they ended up saving a lot more. One of the real problems wasn't just the employees toiling. They were having issues in their SLA response times. And for those of you who aren't familiar with SLA, it's service level agreement. Like an example would be Alaska Airlines says, if we don't get your luggage to baggage claim in 20 minutes, we owe you, I don't know, a free cocktail or something, right? That 20-minute window is your service level. So you have to meet these service levels, or sometimes companies will reduce payment. You get lower customer satisfaction. If you're really bad, you can start losing customers. So by having poor SLA response times, it's eroding their brand, which is even worse than an employee losing an hour a day. So here's what they did about it. They built a chatbot for their internal support team. So they named it Orobot. But what they started with is they indexed 500,000 documents across those 6 systems. So they had AI ingest that, and they used a RAG architecture. Retrieval augmented generation is basically LLMs are trained on a data set and they can go out and search the web. RAG will actually go and search your specific data so that you get more relevant, higher accuracy, no hallucinations, because they're basing the content on the pool of data that you've specified it to access and learn from. So they designed a RAG architecture to work with that internal data to bring it together. And it took them 2 months to build a prototype. They weren't as quick as you, Rob, 10 minutes. I love that. But to them, that was quite a compressed time. And what they wanted was a very conversational interface. As we all have experienced the decision tree chat bot helps that are not helpful at all. They've got to go away, and they are disappearing, thankfully, for these more conversational interfaces. So they piloted this with internal teams before the broad rollout. It went well, and of course, they rolled it out. So this ended up allowing them to save staff hours. 50 a day were reclaimed. They had under 1 minute response time. So they weren't spending multiple cycles and multiple touch points with people to resolve cases. They were able to respond in minutes. And they were considering an off-the-shelf chatbot. For those of you who are looking at possibly doing one of these higher level conversational RAG-driven chatbots for your organization, there are off-the-shelf applications out there, but they were able to actually build this in-house with what they said was 10x more cost effective for them. And probably what I would say is most importantly from a strategic standpoint is improving their SLA performance, because you have happy customers. When it comes time to renew your contract, this is a very sticky business. You can increase your service fees. You get good customer satisfaction ratings. You can expand your customer base instead of defend yourself all the time. So this is a highly valuable example of AI, and the tools that they used, obviously RAG, Amazon, the Bedrock system, again, that's for prototyping, and then all the enterprise knowledge indexing, which is within that Amazon Web Services ecosystem. Okay. This one I'm going to go pretty quickly through because I have 2 more. Big brothers and big sisters. So here's an example of a nonprofit, much like Rob's storytelling. Like they have such amazing stories that just weren't getting told. They were able to curate 10 impact stories a year. And it was a very manual process. It's volunteer driven mostly. So people are doing the basics, the impact reports, the operational content. They're keeping the organization running, and they don't have time to magnify or amplify some of the amazing stories that are happening every day within Big Brothers Big Sisters. So what they did was they decided, look, we're gonna try to throw AI at this problem and get these stories unleashed. So they looked at the data sources that they had, who they're serving, the kinds of relationships and mentorship programs that are ongoing, and then they built a workflow. So the 10 case studies that they did build, they of course had a process. Okay, we're going to do these interviews. We're going to get the gems. We're going to produce a video. We're going to tell the story. We're going to build the blog post. So what they did is they used a product called Zapier. Zapier is an agent tool. I think it's more of a workflow tool myself. It's another tool similar you might have heard of as N8N. But they use Zapier to build each chunk of workflow and then connect that workflow to build these stories based on data input. So they didn't have to do much work. They just had to get the data shoved into this workflow, and Zapier did the rest. They would get out the other end a first pass at these success stories. And then, of course, a human in the loop. I'm always a fan of that still, to refine those and bring them to the public and their donors and tell these stories. So they went from 10 to 280 stories a year. They saved 40 hours a week, which when you're working with volunteers, these are not full-time people. They actually ended up not filling a couple open recs because they could do this with volunteers very efficiently. And then, of course, they could commit more time to the mission-driven work that they were committed to. So tools used, of course, Zapier. Of course, Zapier has APIs. You can connect LLMs. You can connect some of your data sources. You can connect email. So all that connectivity and the workflows automating, and of course, image generators for some of their content creation helped them unleash these beautiful stories. And last but not least, I really wanted to have one, so I kind of threw this in at the last minute of, it's amazing what's going on in the video production world in AI. It's incredible. There's saving time, but then there's now you can do things you could never do before. And that's what I'm seeing a lot in the video tools. I love playing with them. This company, Persado, this is a New York-based firm. They help large companies like JP Morgan Chase. I forget some of their other customers, but huge companies, they're an engagement platform. So they help them get engagement on their content, basically. Their salespeople that they're onboarding. So this isn't their customers. This is internal facing for their salespeople. The onboarding process, when they got a new salesperson, it was too long. They had a very complex platform. They had big customers that they're going after, and they wanted polished, professional, well-trained salespeople. And it was just taking too long to onboard and train people. They found that videos did a great job for training, but making the videos was a huge initiative. You're doing a production, you get your talent, and it was a slow process. And also, as those of you who make videos know, once you've changed something, your video has to be changed. Not so easy when you do your own production. So what they did is they turned to something that I know this is going to make some eyes roll here, but Synthesia does the avatars that you can feed script and create a video. This is mind-blowing to me, and they're getting better and better. So they went to this script-to-video model. So you can record yourself, and they tell you the movements to make and not make. I've talked with my hands too much. But you record that, and then they can create an avatar that mimics. They have you read text, and it can form words. And the AI will actually take a video script, and this is what they've done. They generate an AI avatar. They standardize some templates, and then you feed the script in, and you get a training video out. I'm sorry, I think that's magic. I love every time I see this, it's amazing. The other tools I've used, I have not used this tool yet. They found that they were getting 95% faster video creation. They were able to make 120 training videos in 1 year, and they could update 100 of them like that. Product change, new launch, platform change, they could completely update their training videos by changing the text in the script. So obviously they scaled that. So there's examples: sales, marketing, healthcare, food industry, enterprise, medium business, small business. And I am going to hand it over to our co-chair, Brian Baumgartner. He is the GM and Chief Product Officer at Connected Farms. He also does consulting. He's a product DNA person through and through. He's been in amazing industries: aerospace, automotive, biotech, oceanography. And I just have to say, Brian, just a joy working with you as the co-chair. And I'm going to turn it over to you now. And you've got some great examples to share with everybody.
Thanks, Sandra. Appreciate it. And of course, the kind words. I think some of these examples may have overlaps with the Rob and maybe Sandra's examples. So we only have about 15 minutes left. I'll get through what I can get through and get through it relatively quickly. And then I think hopefully we'll leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. I know we are ending on time today, but if we have a little bit of time, we'll be happy to answer those. So this is an example about writing a PRD, and as Rob mentioned, I'm also a product person. So as Rob mentioned, we write a lot of PRDs or product requirements documents. At their core, these are documents that take customer requirements and turn them into actionable, executable things by an engineering team. And so if you write a PRD and you write it, well, the engineering team knows what to do and they never have to ask you a question. Of course, that never happens. So in reality, there's lots of back and forth and a lot of, bottoms up and top down type of trading. But in the end, you're trying to write, as much as you can about what you're building into this document and give people sort of the idea of like where you're going, why you're going there, and then some of the details about what you're trying to do. So I've written a lot of these. I used to work for Uber ATG and Aurora and Cruise and all these, self-driving car companies. PRDs kind of were what led sort of the charge on, telling the engineering team what to build, why to build it, and like kind of what the features should look like. So recently at Connected Farms, I had to write one of these PRDs for a new product that we're thinking about building. And so rather than write the PRD myself, which of course can take like at least a day, but maybe up to like a week by the time you gather all the information, type everything out, put everything in there, I decided to use Gemini mostly, but basically one of the LLMs, any of the LLMs kind of do it. And the biggest advantage here was that I was able to take a lot of like random, or not, I guess not random, but disparate sort of pieces of information. So customer meetings that may have been recorded, having conversations with our customers and taking those recordings and feeding them into the LLM, engineering, C-suite, and other constraints. So a lot of people at the company have opinions, good, bad, and in between, but you can take all of those and give them weights and put them in. You think of a lot of use cases for your end customer. So these are like user stories. It's like, I'm a farmer who wants to be connected. So I, have this way I want to do this and I have some outcome that I want. So you can like put those in there. And then there's just other thoughts and stuff that you have. Like I personally often have thought bubbles when I'm riding my bike around town. And, that's like a great time to be thinking. And so I'll think, oh, I want to add that to the PRD. So Sandra, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. But basically, for this particular PRD, rather than, like I said, write it myself, I just kind of dumped all these things into Gemini, and I didn't really bother formatting it. I didn't really bother trying to organize it, but a few like great things came out of doing that. One is that, it generated all the user stories for me. So it made these really nice tables that were grouped by theme and sort of put all of these different pieces of information in there. So that was really great. And then it combined notes and meetings. I could just feed it, videos that have been recorded or transcripts or other things and say, make sure all of these pieces are captured into this PRD and that they're represented in the overall product and what we're trying to build here. I can balance the feedback from internal, external stakeholders. I can put weight on things. I can kind of tell it, emphasize this, de-emphasize that. And I can even collaborate with the tool and say, like, help me infer strategy. Like, what features am I missing? What are some of the next steps here that I haven't thought about? Like maybe the thoughts I'm having on my bike, Gemini can have for me, and I can just kind of coax it into creating a more holistic document that has a bunch more, useful information in it. So outcome basically is that, like I said, I created an organized document that can be used for alignment. One thing I think that PRDs are really great for is that if you show up in a room with a blank sheet of paper and say, what are we building, guys? You're never going to get anything useful out of that team, because they just, it's just hard to get people to get somewhere useful and with sort of like no structure. So one thing I found with PRDs is like you can hand it to the engineering team, and even if it's completely 100% wrong, the engineering team will let you know. And that's useful because then you at least have feedback, you at least have signal, and you can then iterate on that to get to the end game here. So yeah, engineering feedback, decreased time from concept to product. Like I said, you can go ahead and build this PRD in, maybe an hour as opposed to a day or a week. And then you can iterate with it. You can read through it. You can say, I don't like this. I do like that. Change this. Like, oh, this is a thought I'm having. You can actually collaborate with it as if you had a whole team of product managers with you trying to do this thing. And then I would say, like, what's not shown here, right, is the like arrow that goes between this example into Rob's first example, which is now I can tell the system to build me a prototype or to start doing mock-ups or to do images for my PRD that help it come to life and help people understand it. And then you can start having conversations with customers saying, hey, is this kind of what you were thinking? Is this something you would buy? And that helps you validate your product before you even go out there and try to sell it to someone or spend 2 years building something and realize this is actually not the right thing to build. So just to quickly talk about these tools really quick, I've mentioned Gemini a lot, which is what I use for this example, but ChatGPT or other LLMs like Claude can theoretically do the same thing. Some may be better than other. You can try multiple and just see what you get and combine them. There is a tool that I have not used called Chat PRD. It looks somewhat promising. At some point, I'll go out and try it out and see if it does any better than Gemini. But just making you aware that if you are trying to do this type of thing, that might be one you could pilot and see if it works well for you. And then I actually don't know the name of the tool or like kind of the access, but like at CES, I saw NVIDIA in their little AI area doing a demo of it, this exact workflow that I just described. And again, I don't know if they were showing someone else's tool or their own, but it kind of showed exactly what I just described in like a live demo scenario. So NVIDIA may have something that's useful for that too, but just kind of wanted to mention those very quickly. So that's example one. We can go to the next one, and I'll just again keep rapid firing in the sort of theme of the chat today. So thinking about sales prep, conference and meeting preparation. Like I'm going to an event called ConExpo. It's a giant construction expo that happens every 2 years, maybe 3 years now, in Las Vegas, and I need to prepare for that conference. I also recently attended World Ag Expo, which is a really big ag expo in like Fresno area. And I went to CES at the beginning of the year. So, if you're just going to check out stuff, maybe there's not a lot of preparation that's required. But if you're going and you want to have meaningful conversations with, sales targets, or you want to have meaningful conversations with potential collaborators, it's worth figuring out like who's going to be there, getting meetings set up, which means reach out and all of these other things. So kind of the example here is, at ConExpo, I want to know who that's interesting to my company and to me is attending, and also maybe who my friends is going that's not interesting, but I can go get tacos with. I want to research these people, so I want to get some background on them. I want to know as much as I can about what makes them tick and what's interesting to them, so that I can leverage that to have these conversations and move the needle on what I want to do. I want to create outreach and marketing. So in a lot of cases, like I am kind of curating these relationships with people who I talk to fairly often, but if it's someone new, I may need to draft an email, and I want to draft an email they're going to respond to, or a LinkedIn message. And so I can get help with that. And then, there's materials that need to be created. I might want to create some special flyers for ConExpo. I might want to create some special marketing materials. So getting all of that done and getting it all aligned is awesome, using AI to streamline the process. So if we go to the next slide, here we go. Kind of the same set of tools. A lot of mine are gonna focus around these like core tools. I don't really branch out too far into the LLMs beyond the core ones, because I find that most of them can do largely what I want. And then Sandra and Rob have both mentioned, like, I'm the human that comes in the loop at the end and kind of just take it over the line. But, like I said, you can, looking at ConExpo or World Agritech, which is another one I'm attending coming up here, I just asked Gemini, hey, I'm going to this trade show. What are the relevant sessions that I should be thinking about? Who are the relevant companies that are going to be showing up? And what should I generally make sure I don't miss? And it will spit back just a long list of possible things. And I can tell it, like, this is interesting, this is not, you got this wrong. And I can curate it toward what I need it to be. Once I have an information that, for example, like Kubota is going to be there and I may want to talk to their CTO, I can ask it for information about that person and sort of get information about if they're speaking, where they're going to be. I can use it to help me find contact information. I can also have it generate a lot of that contact materials, and I can then come up with a plan involving the strategy of what I'm going to do. And so again, results here: outreach completed in minutes instead of days or hours. It can find and suggest things that I might have otherwise missed, generate materials and the opportunity to adjust, amend, and follow up for content. And we're going to move to the next one, but I'll just add one more quick sentence here about this that actually was an interesting thing I did recently. So I'll be at World Agritech in mid-March up in San Francisco, and at the same time as NVIDIA GTC conference down in San Jose. So I can't attend both, but I can ask Gemini to figure out if there's anything I can't miss at GTC. And so now I've got actually a list of, this is happening on Monday and this is happening on Thursday. And World Agritech is basically a little bit of Monday, but Tuesday and Wednesday. So I can kind of jump on Caltrain and jump up and down the Bay Area and figure out what I need to see from both of those events. So again, just another way to speed it up.
Don't miss Jensen's keynote.
For me, that's always a follow-up YouTube. But I'm not cool enough to get into the theater on that one. But Jensen's keynote's always a good one. So if you want to jump to the last slide here. Data collection and data insights. This is just another example. When I was at Uber, or when I was at a number of other companies I've worked for, we really had a lot of data we collected, a lot of road data, or in Bonsai, a lot of like ag data. Not all of it's frankly useful. You collect a lot of data and pay a lot to store it, and you can't do anything with it. In some cases, we've actually more than once ended up just deleting a lot of data, sort of declaring data bankruptcy and saying, there's too much here, we can't do anything with it, we're just paying to store it, let's reduce the costs. So leveraging AI to sort of make better choices about what to collect and make some of the kind of like cumbersome and unorganized data into something structured is a useful way to sort of really add a lot of value to a problem that can really be difficult to work through if it's just completely human powered. So if we go to the next slide, we can go through kind of the outcomes here. So, again, with using AI, there's kind of some opportunities to have like natural language queries of data. You can say, I want more examples of school buses, and then the machine can go out and actually collect that data on its own, or without you having to specifically say this is a school bus, or kind of train it on certain data, or kind of manually curate the data, or sort of operate the machine to get the data. Data can be deleted if it's too repetitive. So you can basically say, like, look at my data set. Like, I don't need 10 million examples of school buses. I only need 1,000. So go delete everything that's extra, and sort of maintain a streamlined version of this, and cut down the data that I do have to be the minimum amount that's required. And then engineers, like I already mentioned, can request data using natural language. So it's a great way to just sort of sift through and find new things. Yeah, result being that, like, data collected is potentially more useful and usable. You're kind of streamlining sort of what you're holding, so that you have the ability to actually use that and leverage it for your models or for whatever you're trying to build. And then fewer resources are required to collect, curate, label, maintain. And a lot of this is done through homegrown tools. There are some tools out there like Encore or Qualia that help you do things like this. But, and then there are a number of other sort of, I guess, proprietary tools that are found at different companies that help get you there. So I think that's all my examples. Sort of a quick overview of my three. Now we just have a couple minutes left, so I can just do this slide quickly since we're here.
Well,
This is
no,
a
I don't think.
reminder.
I
Yeah.
think since we have limited time, we do have a good question in here, and I want to get to it so everybody can absorb this information while we talk through this question. But somebody's asking about it. It's a long question, but I think I can summarize it by saying all these AI tools, approaches are really widening the attack surfaces for nefarious actors, even just governance, data privacy, and all that. And the question is, how are you using tools or employing processes to make sure that the need for greater efficiency does not breed risk? It is a great question and way beyond the scope of this webinar and a 2-minute, but because I do a whole talk on responsible AI and the risks and spotting them and mitigating them. And I have a partner I do that with, so I'll send that to this person. But this is a huge concern. And companies are only just now becoming aware of these risks. They aren't even aware that they're causing data leakages. I could talk for an hour on this one, but I won't. But I want everybody to hear this question because it's really important for everybody to start building awareness. It's building a culture in a company of risk awareness and risk mitigation in addition to the IT protection. So I'll let Brian, Rob, either one of you jump in with your perspective there.
I'll answer it from my personal perspective and then what we did at Shell, my most recent job. I have not installed on my local machine an AI engine that will automatically manage stuff for me. So there's a couple of those applications that are out now that are automatically managing your email. And there was a big article on 500 text messages sent from one AI bot that blasted all of his entire contacts list. That sort of stuff are the things that we're going to stumble across now in the early days that will get resolved. At Shell, they declined to allow us access to AI from within the firewall, which also meant within our own laptops, because anything that goes into the AI engine becomes fodder for somebody else answering a question. So we couldn't ask a question about our own markets, about our own business, put any spreadsheets into AI from within the firewall. And the reason for Shell was that's just giving away trade secrets. It's putting trade secrets into the public domain. Because once you've asked the question or you've added information to the AI, it's considered part of the AI. So ChatGPT, you ask a question of it, you put some proprietary information in, the next person who comes along and asks a question around that will be leveraging the results of your data in their response. So what I've been doing is making sure that nothing I do that is proprietary is done inside of the AI, and then nothing installed on my machine right now until I can figure out what's working and what's not working.
Yeah. Brian, anything to add? I know you have a hard stop too.
My 4-second answer is come to AI Perspectives on legal and ethical challenges associated with developing and deploying AI on April 21st. And we'll probably talk a lot more about this topic.
Perfect. And you'll be getting that link in this follow-up email. I'll highlight that actually, Brian, that upcoming webinar so people have it high on their radar. And thank you again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.